and welcome to those of you who have never been here. We are a 3.5 acre organic, certified organic, 100% no-till, 100% no-spray vegetable farm. We're growing mixed vegetables and fruits, and we have been Astarte since 1999. We've been no-till since 2014, so we have 11 years of trying this out and a lot of different trial and error going on here. So I'm really excited to share what we're currently excited about. I'm happy to answer any questions about anything at all, like from irrigation to no-till, like why no-till. I have been the farm manager here for 6 seasons. I started out co-managing with Amelia Mead, and then have been, so I've been here since 2020. Tillage is a word that just means any kind of stirring of the soil. It often means doing that with heavy machinery like a plow or a harrow, something that really breaks up the soil structure and creates a uniform texture. And the reason why farmers would love to do that is because when you have that uniformity at the top, all your crops come up at the same time, and your machinery can float at that same height and create consistency. But unfortunately, when you break up the soil structure and disturb the soil that frequently, you create a host of other problems, including releasing carbon into the atmosphere. You have less resilience against drought and floods. You essentially create like an ecosystem that's like a landslide every year, because you just wipe everything off and leave only the conditions where the first like colonizer plants can come in, which are the weeds, or bacteria can grow in that kind of a time frame, but fungi cannot. Larger bodied creatures can't really do that. So you've created a less diverse soil community, which hopefully we'll actually get to see through the microscope today. And conversely, if we reduce tillage, even just a little bit, or take it all the way to no-till, you create a soil structure that has channels to hold air and water, which then acts as a sponge in dry times and wet times. You introduce an environment where fungi can live, as well as ground nesting bees, which are 80% of our native bee species. What we're trying to do here with no-till is create something that acts a little bit more like a forest ecosystem, where the soil is always covered by either decaying matter or living roots. And there's less disturbance, and there's lots of diversity both above and below the soil. And the benefits we've seen from that are amazing. We've had extreme droughts and extreme floods pretty much ping-ponging back and forth for the last several years. Certainly the years that I've been farming, which is not that long, really. And we have seen our crops lasting so much better in those conditions than elsewhere. And we also don't see puddling in our fields. We're definitely going to see puddling today in the road, but not in the beds or in the paths. And if we were to use equipment, which we have a tractor, but we barely use it, we can get in and out of our fields. So it's a great benefit, as well as great for the environment. And we're sequestering carbon, which is really what motivates me when I think about the uncertain future that we're headed into. I want to do something that's making a positive impact, even just on 3 acres. So that's my elevator pitch. Happy to talk more in detail about all of that, but I thought we could maybe start by walking around the farm a little bit. The first place I want to stop is where we've done some mulching experiments, which were actually funded by AFT. We were able to purchase paper mulch, straw mulch, and leaf mulch, which we actually did pay for last year, in order to do some comparisons. And I'm personally really excited about leaf mulch, so I want to show you how it looks and talk about it, and I'm excited about its potential for reducing plastic use on the farm, so very motivated by that. Why would no-till reduce puddling in the field? Because over time, that spongy soil structure recovers and is able to absorb more water so that the water actually drains after a rain. Whereas in tillage, you fluff up the top of the soil, but after a rain, it compacts. The structure compacts actually quite close together, and it's very hard for water to permeate. It's actually quite a big problem. So it looks very fluffy at first, but it becomes something that can't absorb water very well, actually, especially in a heavy rain. And our roads are very compacted, so that's why we have puddles there.
It gets more dense?
Yeah, it gets more dense. Yeah, all of the soil structure is broken into fine pieces, and then the pieces settle together and becomes dense. Yeah. Good question. Based on our scale. So we're doing everything we can to control weeds in innovative ways, and hopefully we are reducing our weed seed bank over time, although I'm kind of suspicious about that when I see that on YouTube or whatever. So I like to think of it more as knowing where I'm going to have to intensively manage weeds each year. So thinking about which crops are going to need a lot of hand weeding attention, and then try to mulch almost everything else. Or we also use a lot of plastic at the moment, which you can also see here. So the trick with the leaf mulch, because I want you to be successful, is that it does resist water. So once it's down, it's hard for rain to sink through it. And it also saps some water from the soil underneath. So my tip with this is to plant first and then wait up to 2 weeks while the crops kind of get established. And I like to wait until they just like green up and start growing. And then I know their roots have really like reached new soil. And then we go in and put the mulch in around the crops. So there is some labor intensity to this, but then I find that I almost never need to water again. And usually it needs like one hand weed throughout the season if we're really putting enough mulch on. Yeah, thank you. The question is about where do the leaves come from and what time of year and how do they look in the spring. So we do stockpile leaves. Now we've got some relationships going with a couple of landscapers who drop their leaves off here, and we make it as enticing for them as we possibly can to bring as many leaves as they can here, because now we want a lot. And we'll walk by the piles, but they have been sitting in a big windrow all winter. And they are a bit composted, but it's such leafy compost that it still acts as a mulch. Yeah, and the top layer is sort of looking leafy again, but it is almost compost. Yeah, good question.
See, I got a leaf grinder. I grind all my leaves right down to that right off.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're relying on composting.
Does it matter what type of leaves they are? Like you got your oak, your maple, and all that. I know oak are real high in acid. Does that affect your crop?
That's a really good question. What kinds of leaves do we use, and do they have different effects? It's a question I should know the answer to, and would love to know the answer to, but it's like not really how I think, because I kind of am trying to like keep it really big picture, and I haven't seen any problems. So whatever they have, we take. We like it when they crunch it up, like when they do the chop up.
Oh yeah, it makes a big difference.
It makes a really big difference for us for spreading it and scooping it and not having it blow away. But we'll take them whole as well. And they mat together even more when they're whole, so it's really important to get the crop established first. And you'll see we have drip tape under here. So we started with the transplanting and the drip tape. We watered them in, and then 2 weeks later we came in and mulched. And we had to weed a little bit before we mulched. The question is, have we tried to mulch first and then plant through, and how does it go, and are there crops we can do that? I have not liked the results of planting into the mulch. I actually think it's not that much faster, because digging through mulch, hand planting, is kind of like finicky, especially if you're doing multiple rows. And then the other thing is I really have seen the crops have trouble taking off with the mulch on there. Because like this bed will be still quite leafy next year, but we might try to direct seed into this. And it doesn't really work well enough, so we now rake it off. But we could plant another transplant into here next year, and it would do great, because it'll be broken down just enough to kind of, yeah, I think it's that moisture piece. Yeah. So how do we bed prep in no-till? It's always different every bed and every crop. And so it's a really big question to answer, because I have to think, what did we have in here last year, and what do we want in here in the fall, or even next spring? So I'm trying to think kind of like, when are we going to need to direct seed something, and we want it to be really clean at that point. So there needs to be a tarping phase. So I guess a quicker answer to your question of how do we bed prep is, if it's going to be a direct seeded crop, it should be coming right from under a tarp. And I call those tarps, but those are landscape fabric strips. They work by blocking light to the soil, which is called occultation in this world. They block sunlight, so photosynthesis can't occur, so whatever's under there dies. And when we leave that on for anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on the time of year, it will be just blank soil underneath. So that's how we direct seed. And then for transplanting, so those tomatoes there, we had arugula there in the spring, and we tarped it for a little while, and then we actually just planted through the tarp, because we want to have weeds controlled there without much effort. These are our pick your own sauce tomatoes, so it's a crop we don't want to give too much attention to. So that's one way that we do no-till bed prep. And then I wish I could tell you right now what this is going to be next, but I just do a lot of trying to like group things together so the bed prep is similar, and then predict what's coming next.
Are you amending the soil?
Are we amending the soil? No. I mean, not with like lime or like nitrogen or anything like that. It's not really like my interest, and I don't see any issues. There probably are issues, but I'm very lucky to have come to this farm where a lot of investment was already put into the soil, and to be in Hadley loam, which is already like great soil to work with. So I know I'm very lucky in those ways. Compost? But we do add compost to certain crops. Yeah, like garlic. Because we are having some issues in our high tunnels. So I do want to take also a sample from the high tunnel and get a look at it. Yeah.
Do you use a broadfork?
We don't. But we had one, and we used it a little bit. And I think it can be a really good tool, especially if you're transitioning to no-till and you need to break up compaction. Yeah. Yeah. The question was about whether we have a broad fork or use it. Yeah. How are we getting the leaves to the beds? We have a whole flow with our tractor, which we use basically just to move compost leaves and wood chips around. So we get a scoop, and then we set up 2 wheelbarrows in the road. It dumps into the wheelbarrows, and then we shake it into the pads, and then we kind of like mush it in around the crops. It's actually not that time consuming, and because the leaves are dry and they're not unpleasant to work with, they're not like straw where it's like hard to get it in there and then you're like so itchy. So I don't know how Will experienced putting leaves on this bed, but it goes pretty quickly like once you're in the flow.
You got an estimate of how much time it takes
to do these 2 beds? Well, this one did take a little longer because we were working around the parsley as well. We did these 4 beds next to the tunnel are kale, and we did those in maybe like 2 hours and 2 hours, so maybe like 4 hours for 4 beds. Yeah.
How many people?
Good question. How many people? We had a big group for that. So maybe like 6 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 2 people, if you had to do all the jobs, yeah, that would take a lot longer. Yeah. Maybe a 6-person crew for that. Yeah. I think one thing I'm kind of keeping an eye on is whether we're getting more weeds introduced from our leaves. I definitely didn't feel that way for a few years, but this year it just started popping into my head. We get tree seedlings that we have to pull now, but not too many. Yeah. People always ask me about the jumping worms. I've never seen a jumping worm. So TBD, yeah. The question is about the first years of weed pressure transitioning to no-till. What they really talk about is that it was like instantly gratifying, that they had the best garlic crop they'd ever had, and then the best lettuce crop they'd ever had planted into those garlic beds. So that's mostly the story I hear, and it sounds like because there was garlic involved, maybe there was a lot of mulch, and those beds had been well cared for. In terms of weeds going to seed on the tops of those beds. But they were growing on less than half of the area that we're growing on now. So I think the weeds were managed differently as well. Yeah. But I don't know for sure. And this is where we did our experimental design with AFT's Soil Health Innovation Grant, comparing paper mulch, leaf mulch, and straw mulch. And I will say, I don't feel like there was a noticeable difference in weed pressure and crew time weeding, which is what we were measuring. But I do, now we're getting the leaves for almost free, so that's a benefit. And I think they contribute to the bed prep for the next year, like kind of we were talking about. As a result, we have lots of volunteer stuff that's really cool, like nasturtium, dill, cilantro. We planted the basil and the tomatoes in here. But the purpose of all of these flowering plants is to draw pollinators into the tunnels. And in addition, they are cash crops, actually, because we sell edible flowers to catering companies, especially for weddings and like cheese boards. They need them every week. And it's a crop that we literally didn't plant this year, and they pay $30 for like an 8-ounce bag. So I just wanted to mention that. It's a really cool thing. Now they volunteer every year. They would take the dill flowers, the cilantro, or the coriander flowers.
Did you just take a bag of flowers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really fun. It's like the best job on the whole farm. Yeah, picking the flowers. Yep. But they're also insectary plants, and they're not really, I mean, that dill is kind of in our way, but I wanted you to be able to see it. And some of those dill tops we will sell. I just wanted to pause here to show you another example of tarping. This is called silage tarp because people use it to cover hay that they're turning into silage. Yeah, thank you. And the benefit of these is that they can cover a much bigger area much easier. The landscape fabric that's like there, we staple it in, we fold it up. It's just a different kind of labor to move these around. We use our tractor to lift and move these. We also have ones that are twice as wide. But same idea, they are suppressing what's underneath here, which in this case is some leftover sort of debris from radishes, and then we had Tokyo bacana and tatsoi next to the peas, and that it only got harvested that much. One issue we've had this year is just time to harvest. So we've had the gleaners come out twice this year, and it's like a sort of ratio that I'm figuring out and fixing. Because we're putting so much work into growing this food, we need to get more to market. But we've been time limited this spring, I think because we've planted more this year, and we've been focused on getting our summer crops in and not taking extra time to harvest. So anyway, we had some extra, and the sunlight is blocked, and they will eventually die back, and Again, I should have looked up what's going in this bed. I can tell you. I just need to look it
Can I
up.
ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
So you're putting the tarp down in the fall, the big tarp. Yes?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, so
This tarp just went down today.
Okay,
But
so typically a lot of us who have plots or
Yeah.
whatever, we're cutting our plants down
Mhm.
at root level
Mhm.
and then taking, after everything has died off,
Mhm.
and then taking those and composting
Mhm.
those, and then putting down some kind of either it's cardboard
Mhm.
or one year I did use this and it was so heavy for one person to move around I didn't use it ever again. But that was happening in the fall. Is that the right sort of process?
Right. Well, it does depend. The question is about like seasonally when do we use these, and also how do we put the farm to bed?
Yeah.
That's kind of the question too.
Yeah.
So, yes, especially on a smaller scale, like chopping at soil level and removing the top and then putting something over it works well. I don't necessarily like to leave a tarp all winter long because the snow and water that collects on top actually does compact the soil underneath a bit. And it just, to me, seems like a little bit harsh because air doesn't permeate through this. So,
So how do you feel about the cardboard thing? Because a lot
well,
of people are happy about the cardboard.
yeah, I do like the cardboard thing because it breaks down over the year and kind of contributes to your soil. So one thing that we do on some smaller kitchen garden plots is we'll put cardboard and compost over it
In the fall.
in the fall,
Okay.
and then maybe leaves on top of that. And it's just a great way to build a lot of soil
Okay.
over
and
the
just
winter.
come in and plant on top of the cardboard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will say I like to kind of think ahead about winter and then think into the next season with bed prep. So I might put a tarp over winter if I know I need the earliest direct seeded crops to go there.
Yeah.
Then I'll do that. But otherwise, I like to do winter rye, which will be living roots in the soil over the winter. And then you tarp it early in the spring so it doesn't get too aggressive. That's what I do anyway. Yeah.
Where do you get your tarps from?
I just found out that Farmer's Friend sells them, which is a company that I like. Before that, I got them from KSI, which is more of like an industrial scale silage. Greenfield Farmers Exchange. Great. Our biggest rodent problem is rabbits that are eating the crop that's just out. No tarps. I don't actually have any issues with mulch and things living in the mulch, surprisingly. When we move a tarp, we'll see lots of tunnels underneath, but they like the environment under the tarp and they don't stay. So, yeah. Not too many problems with rodents, other than rabbits, which are a big problem.
What about the landscape pattern? Under there?
Same thing. We'll see the tunnels under there,
So, like,
if they're down for a long time.
your tomatoes that you have on that the whole season,
Mm-hmm.
you expect there's some under there, but it hasn't been an issue.
It hasn't been an issue. One year we did tarped tomatoes all year and we never had an issue. Yeah. A tarp from Home Depot would work. It would do the job of blocking the light, but those aren't usually UV stabilized materials. So it might create like something that's degrading and leaving trash behind. That is the nice thing about these and the landscape fabric. Yeah, good question though. I did want to just tell you what's going in here next, just for the hell of it.
What are you?
Oh, it's my field plan.
Is it a spreadsheet or what?
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet. Yeah, it's a Google sheet. So it's going to be bush beans and edamame, which is, I was trying to group all of the
How long do you plan for
nitrogen
the tarp to be
fixers.
down between?
I plan for the tarp to be down 2 weeks. Yeah. This is sort of an example of what it looks like after the tarp comes up. And then
What will you use to do that job?
we'll probably have to hoe around the crops, and then we're going to straw mulch or leaf mulch around the plants, and then we'll probably tarp the pads just to save us some time.
So you do a little bit of hoeing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. To clarify,
Like this
like
kind of
if
stuff.
you want to count tillage as like no soil disturbance,
Yeah,
we definitely hoe.
okay. Yeah.
Sometimes we even use our flail mower to like you know, cut down everything, like you were saying, you cut it to a level.
Yeah.
We'll use our flail mower, and then sometimes we'll run it a little bit low too, just to like really
Okay.
make it uniform. Yeah.
First,
The question is about leaving some areas unweeded to create cover, you know, living cover. And so I was talking to somebody about how when I got here, every other bed was a permanent living cover of just lawn pretty much, but it was such a source of weed seeds going into the bed, and it really was not worth it. I would say, like, don't do that because weeds, specifically those types of plants, they are trying to cover the soil as fast as they can and also complete a life cycle in a short amount of time to drop seeds again. And so there are different plants I would recommend keeping near your crops. I wouldn't just leave those plants that are really trying to, you know, go to seed as fast as they can. Yeah. And then I did want to mention here, kind of based on your question, this is a cover crop we were planting here as a experiment. This bed actually was the last living cover bed, and I'm worried about it being compacted. So we're doing daikon radish, which I don't know if that'll do that well in the summer, and buckwheat to try to suppress the weeds, which it's not really doing. So that's what's going on right here. It's just a cover crop trial thing. Yeah, so this actually, where Allie's standing, that is a pollinator bank.
Okay.
Yes, we mowed it really low this spring, but normally it has pretty big grasses. It's been invaded with quackgrass, so it needs to be renovated. But at some point it was planted with native grasses. The other thing you can do is throw in like stumps that attract spiders and beetles. We had 3 of them. We're renovating all of them because of this problem of being a weed seed bank and creating just a lot of labor to manage. It's part of creating a habitat for native insects, and I guess spiders aren't insects, but they are, you know, it's trying to draw habitats for different kinds of creatures so that if you have a diverse population of living things, they are keeping each other in some balance, because beetles and spiders, they eat other insects. Beetles eat seeds, so that can be helpful with weed control. I don't know how helpful it is, but it's just another way to try to bring more diversity to the farm, which is actually a really good segue for something I was going to forget to say, but I wanted to say, which is that the borders of the farm were all very intentionally planted with flowering plants, and they're planted in such a way that something is always flowering, and the insects should be going back and forth across the field. So there's like hydrangeas on both sides, there's lilacs on both sides. I love that that's flowering because that's one of my favorites, and it's a special time of year when it flowers. So that's another way that we have kind of like the insects in mind. In weather that is 70 degrees or higher and sunny, if you try doing this in the early spring, you're going to create a lovely greenhouse, and you're just going to have a proliferation of life under here. The idea is you put clear plastic, which is trapping heat, and it gets really hot underneath and actually kills the plants through heat underneath. It's really important to seal all the edges, because any kind of airflow will cool it down enough that it won't be effective. So we use T-posts on the edge because we're not digging to bury things, but you could do that. And this, once the sun comes out, it could be ready in 24 hours if it's a hot, really sunny day. We did experience that as bed prep for our eggplants. They were able to go from bok choy to eggplants in 2 days. This is our Salanova mix that didn't get weeded on this end. It got harvested on that end. We're moving on to another planting, but we just put this on today. So it will be ready by Monday for sure. So flame weeding is a cool way to stale bed before, flame weeding is when you use actually like a propane torch over the top of your bed, and it also cooks little sprouting weeds through heat. It only works really at the white thread stage of weeds, so it wouldn't work to turn a bed over from this. Also, worth saying, we've tried a lot of flame weeding here, and with no-till, it's a little bit risky because we tend to use more mulch, and there tends to be more debris left on the bed, which we have had some kind of fire issues. So we're very careful with weather and having irrigation ready when we do it, but we do it to prep for our carrots. So that's a classic use for flame weeding, and it works really well. But you have to time it right so that you're actually not killing your stuff and killing the weeds at an early stage.